Okay, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a review on the new JBL Grip, which I've got in front of me here. It's about the same size as a Red Bull can. I think they actually even technically marketed it that way. It's obviously like a smaller version of the JBL Flip series. In fact, I've got one here with me now. So you can see the size difference between a Flip 7. It's a couple centimeters shorter and a little bit thinner as well, so potentially a nicer form factor to just be able to put in your pocket or in your bag, just that much lighter and that much more portable, while maintaining hopefully most of the same sound quality. So it's an interesting idea. Obviously the first in its line, we'll see if it takes off or if it's a kind of one-time thing, but yeah, we'll be going through the specs, doing a little sound test, and then letting you know what I think about it, if I think it's worth it, and then we'll do a full comparison against the Flip 7 in another video. So we'll do a proper side-by-side sound comparison, and kind of delve a bit deeper into the comparison of specifications and stuff. But for this, we're going to be focusing on the grip itself, just as if it's a new speaker. So it does retail for $89.99. So kind of on the higher side for something of this size. You know, it's smaller than like something like the Sonos Roam 2, which is a decent amount taller, and it's obviously a bit wider, but it's quite pricey for its size, I think. It's got a 16-watt RMS output, so yeah, like nothing crazy here at all. It is definitely pocket-sized sound, so you're not going to be playing this at parties or blowing people away with it. It is quite literally like, this is as portable as you can get in this form factor with this power. So that's kind of what's going on. Frequency range is 70 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So it'll be interesting to see. We've got the frequency graph over here. It'll be interesting to see where we come on that scale, if we're meeting the 70 to 20 or if we're beating it or not quite. We've got a drivers we've got a 43 by 80 mil full range transducer, so quite a nice decent sized driver in there. Being JBL, it obviously does make use of the AI sound boost, so it kind of scans its surroundings when it gets into a room like this. It uses microphones to test the sound it gets back and adjust itself accordingly. So nice to have, not like you have to turn it off or on or anything like that. It's just working in the background all the time. Effectively means that it slightly changes its profile if you're outdoors or indoors, stuff like that. So some cool features there. Battery wise then is probably one of your biggest concerns with something that's a Red Bull size speaker, with 16 watt of output. But it does have 14 hours of playtime. That's with playtime boost on. Without it, it's about 12 hours. That's going to be at probably roughly 50% volume with the ambient lighting on the back off. So yeah, 14 hours I think is pretty impressive out of a Red Bull can. 14 hours like that is obviously going to be more like 7 hours full volume, maybe even less. But yeah, I think still pretty decent for the size it is, bearing in mind you could literally just have this in your pocket, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, it does weigh 0.385 kilos, so like 385 grams. So it is, I don't know what it actually weighs compared to a full can of Red Bull, but I imagine it is genuinely similar. It's got an ambient light on the back. We'll go through that when we talk about the design a little bit more in a second. It's IP68, as you'd expect from something like this from JBL, so you can kind of get it wet, get it dusty, throw it around, drop it off buildings. I'm sure it will take whatever you throw at it pretty much. And then obviously it's running Bluetooth 4, so newest Bluetooth version is probably what we'd expect, seeing as it's a new speaker. Yeah, design wise, it's interesting. It's quite small. There's no kind of open passive radiators on this. Obviously you normally see that on the JBL Flips. There's no of those kind of the bumping, the moving domes on either side, those passive radiators there. So it's quite a weird almost look. It's just flat on either end pretty much. On the top, you've got power, Auracast, and Bluetooth control with just a standard status light, effectively. On the front, you've got a kind of 3D JBL logo with a orange kind of outline, which is nice. It all feels very good quality. On the front, at the top, you've got playback both buttons, so you've got up and down volume and the pause or skip button. And then on the back, it gets a bit more interesting. You've got a little strap, a very small one. You've got a USB-C port, and then you've got a ambient light with the word grip in it. So it's got 4 or 5 different lighting settings. I can show you what they are on the app in a minute, but none of them really bounce to the music or interact with the music in any way. I think it is literally, they call it an ambient light, and that's what it is. It's got there's no kind of software, it doesn't move around with the music, which is a bit of a shame. It is literally just, you kind of choose, you press the button at the bottom or use the app to choose the style of ambient light you have, and then it does literally just stay that way. Which is a bit of a shame. You don't see it interacting with the music or doing anything like that. It just kind of loops in a pre-recorded animation. But I mean, you know, we're on the cheaper end of things here, and the Flip 7 doesn't have anything like that, so it's still a unique touch. But at the same time, you do worry kind of how much space that might be taking up on the inside that could have been used for something more important. But hey ho, I'm sure they know what they're doing. But yeah, design wise, it's fairly simple, but it's rugged, it's nice, none of the materials feel cheap, nothing like that. So I think it's a speaker you'd be happy with. But yeah, let's listen to the sound. It'll be interesting to see what kind of decibel readings we get out of it and what frequency range we're seeing, and then we will talk about it a bit more afterwards. Okay, so that's the sound test over. I think it does actually say the peak was 86 hertz. I think we maybe got a little bit lower than that at points. I'm not quite sure how accurate that is. I think we probably got maybe high 70s on the low end of the frequency range there. So kind of not quite what they were stating, but then again, this isn't the best song and I'm not using the best equipment here and it's not at full volume. So I think it's you know, obviously I'm not saying they're lying, but I think it's maybe you're kind of unlikely to get that frequency range out of it commonly. I don't think we also really saw the 20 kilohertz side of things either. It seems to drop off quite a bit before then. But more importantly, I think it's quite obvious here that JBL have gone for volume over quality, which is quite rare for them. I find that normally the speakers are kind of capped out so that they go as loud as they can without there being any kind of distortion or anything like that. But in this one's case, I don't think that's the same. You know, we were seeing kind of 95, 96, 97 decibel peaks, which is surprisingly loud for a speaker of this size. You know, a lot of the time you don't get anywhere near that. You get low 90s if you're lucky. But that did mean that there was actually distortion for maybe one of the first times ever on a JBL speaker. I'm not quite sure I can remember ever having like proper audible distortion before. I don't know how it came across on camera, but especially on the bassy end of things, it was a bit crumply. You almost heard a bit of crackling in the background. I think it was just struggling to reproduce it. which is disappointing. I think, especially on the bassy side of things, just generally, it's quite disappointing. There isn't that kind of JBL thump going on. I think the bass is definitely lacking, as we can see from the frequency chart as well. I mean, it's so kind of flat and dead up here. There's just not much going on, probably due to the lack of those two passive radiators that the Flip 7 has, and just obviously a bit of power. But I think the 16-watt output, along with the no passive radiator setup, and potentially they're kind of different software going on here. I think they really have focused on trying to make the loudest sound possible out of this Red Bull sized kind of setup, but maybe have gone away from what the brand is kind of stands for, which is, you know, maybe not the most premium sound, but there's never been distortion, that's for sure. You know, it's always been within its limits, and it's always been a bass heavy, you know, a kind of a bass heavy lineup of speakers, and I think we're not getting a lot of that here. We're definitely getting some distortion, and we're not seeing a bass side to this speaker at all. It's very kind of, it's very weak down there. So to be honest, I think for this price as well, for the 90 quid, there's better to spend your money on. And almost even if there wasn't, I think that spending more money would just be worth it in this case, because it's just kind of, it's a little bit disappointing. It's like, you know, 60% of the sound is there. You know, the top ends are quite good. You didn't really hear much distortion going on up there. The quality is quite nice there, but it's just the low end of things where we're missing the passive radiators, and we're missing just the general power of in this speaker, that it just kind of sounds a bit cheap and a bit tinny, and I don't like it very much. I think if you're kind of, you know, I guess if it's hanging off the side of your bicycle and you're taking it out, you're probably not going to notice, but I don't think there's much harm in spending a bit more here and getting something which is a better all-rounder. And especially when you're outside, you know, you want a little bit more bass, something that kind of carries itself a bit more. I think this is just lacking in that area. But yeah, the next video I'm going to be doing a straight comparison against the Flip 7, so it'll be interesting to see how those sound side by side. I think that will really bring out how lacking in bass this actually is. So if you want to see that, then hop over there. But if you, yeah, you know, let me know, drop a comment on this video. Do you agree? Would you grab one? You know, let me know.